How's it going, guys? We're back for another SBT video. This is the week 2 recap, and we're going to be going over the same things that we did last week. We're going to try to. I'm not alone. I'm actually joined here by Beater.
Yep.
Gene.
Yo.
Also by King Swampy.
Yo.
And also by Puck.
Hello.
Alright, so we have everyone here. And I guess we can just get right into it. We're gonna look at the standings and talk about those. So how we're gonna go about this again, guys, is we're going to break down each league starting from C and then go to A, and we're gonna recap a couple of the games that we deem necessary for each league, and then we're gonna get into the kill leaders, and then we're gonna talk about our potential games that games of the week for the next week. So for C League, if we look at it, we could talk about how they look different from last week. The only big difference, so the league standing didn't really change too much from last week, because we still have Rousseau and his Oklahoma Heatmore sitting at number 1. And we still have Ryan and his London Lucarios sitting at number 2. Everyone else kind of moved up 1 and down 1, and obviously the bottoms kind of just shifted around a bit. But we do have to introduce a new coach to C League. We have the Oaxville Oshawatts and Kaitlyn, who graciously stepped in for one of our coaches that had to drop, unfortunately. Jackson, he will be missed, and yeah, so let's just go from the bottom and then get to the top here. We have Cleveland Charizards at number 12, the Cairo Camels at number 11, Melbourne Marowaks. This isn't the WB. Melbourne Marowaks at number 10, Brampton Ursurings at number 9, Philadelphia Braveberries at number 8, Peterborough Palpitoads at number 7, Cranbourne Crowbats at number 6, St. Louis Scizors at number 5, the Oaksville Oshawatts at number 4, Copenhagen Canines at number 3, London Lucarios number 2, and the Oklahoma Heatmore at number 1. So we're going to get into the matches now. And the first match I believe we're going to talk about is the Peterborough Palpitoads versus the London Lucarios game. So we have Gryoine versus Ryan. And yeah, guys, what do you want to talk about with this game here? It looks like Ryan brought his Landorus, Therian, Zeraora, Empoleon, Uxie, Latios, and Blacephalon, while Gryoine brought his Metagross, Piloswine, Mega Audino, Victinis, Galvantula, and Starmie. So
from the get-go, it was interesting to see how both sides played that first turn, because both sides had reasonable suspicion to want to switch, and neither did. The Galvantula could have feared a Choice Scarf Blacephalon that would have blown the doors off of it, as we later found out it was Life Orb.
Mm-hmm.
And not Sash. And the Blacephalon could have been very wary of an HP Ground or a pure Thunderbolt, a Life Orb Thunderbolt, because it was not Scarf, as we later saw as it went for Flame Charge after the Volt Switch.
And obviously a Blacephalon... Like, Ryan could have anticipated a Sash on Galvantula, maybe. So staying in there to Flame Charge, yeah, it would have broke the Sash. But I think Gryoine would have still been able to get up webs if he just let it happen. Maybe Ryan wasn't too scared of webs this match, because he did have things like Uxie, Latios, and Landorus. But he still had the Zeraora in the back, so... I guess he didn't really care too much about webs, and maybe Gryoine knew that as well, because he didn't actually have webs on his Galvantula, I believe. He was just very offensive.
Well, the webs thing from Gryoine's side, I think the added bonus is that Defiant Empoleon with a sword set could have caused problems late game,
Mm-hmm.
So webs could have been helpful, but they also could have been harmful.
That's true.
And I guess Ryan knew that, but even still, that was a very brazen play for turn.
He might have
was
anticipated.
take damage.
He might have anticipated webs being brought and thinking that Empoleon could get a boost from that. Maybe Gryoine knew that as well. But one of the
also, in fairness, it was a crit volt switch turn, so
yeah,
the 86% that it did was.
So he probably wasn't
a little
anticipating
bit
that much damage, obviously coming.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we liked about this match was that Gryoine's roster actually has a Celesteela on it, and I'm not sure if Ryan figured that Gryoine just wasn't going to bring the Celesteela, but he ended up bringing a Scarf Landorus this match, and to be fair, Scarf Landorus when your opponent has a Celesteela isn't always the best bring, because if you lock yourself into EQ, Celesteela might be able to come in on a predicted switch or on a predicted EQ and then just start setting up. But obviously Gryoine didn't bring the Celesteela, in which case Ryan had a very nice Scarf Landorus in the back to maybe clean up. So it kind of worked out for him in the end.
Yeah,
maybe Gryoine was scared of the Lando.
in the late game, Gryoine had a chance to land a Toxic on Ryan's Mega Latias, which missed, and I think cost him the game.
That was a very big miss on his part.
It definitely did. Another thing is Victini final gambling the Empoleon. I think he could have held that off a little bit.
He was obviously for the Latias, I believe, in the late game.
Yeah, he must have expected a switch. The thing on the Toxic play, the Toxic miss was definitely unfortunate. I'm not sure why Ryan went for the Calm Mind turn rather than the Sub.
I really think
Right.
I don't know if Gryoine had shown Toxic at that point, but I think Ryan was more concerned about a Dazzling Gleam coming out from there, and he had shown the Toxic, because if that was the case, then he could have subbed first, but maybe he still would have thought a Dazzling Gleam was going to do a lot to Latias anyway.
No, he revealed Toxic on the first Calm Mind turn. He tried it again, sub turn.
And then he subbed after that, obviously.
By that point, he had revealed D-Gleam, Wish, Protect.
Okay.
Yeah, I think sub was definitely the play there, because with Calm Mind, I mean, it was a Mega Audino, so you're really not that afraid of Dazzling Gleam anyway.
You can find out.
And Mega Audino isn't very offensive anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
It would have ended up breaking sub.
It still would have broke the sub, but
it would have also revealed some information.
That's true. I don't know if the Latias actually had Recover. I can't remember. But
it did not. It was T-Bolt, Ice Beam, and the sub.
Okay. So I can understand why, like, taking damage with Latias might have been hard for Ryan then, and he thought, okay, let me set up a Calm Mind instead so I can take less damage from Dazzling Gleam. But also taking, like, I think he kind of weighed out the options. Is it better to be Toxic, or is it better to take damage here? So I don't know. I guess maybe he wasn't trying to win with Latias in the late game. He was just trying to break it down so that Landorus could win. Because at that point,
I think he just wanted.
Well, at that point, if he would have landed that Toxic, he could have potentially stalled out the Lottie.
It would have been interesting because
the Lando wouldn't have been able to kill the Mega Audino.
Earthquake did 38%. It was a physical defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what Ryan was thinking, it's a 50-50, because you don't know what the last move is, but if you don't Calm Mind there, D-Gleam is just going to pop your sub every time, so what do you do, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really 50-50, you don't know if it's Toxic, so might as well just set up right there. And he got fortunate that the Toxic missed, so I'm sure he was thinking, well, we take those all day, right?
Another thing on the note of Lando, I don't know for certain, but I'm fairly sure that was a Jolly Scarf Lando, and that thoroughly confuses me, because, Mams, you and I had this discussion
during
before
the commentary, right?
during the actual commentary. Gryoine's team does not require a Jolly Scarf Lando.
His speed tiers don't match up to that.
His speed tiers could have been, he could have run Adamant Lando, and
yeah, he could have had more damage.
That would have helped him. That would have killed the Mega Audino clear.
That would have guaranteed some rolls there for sure. So, I think just by looking at the Pokemon that each team brought, you could see how much pressure Ryan had on his side compared to Gryoine's. Because yes, Gryoine had a Victini, but aside from that, he only had a Life Orb Galvantula and then a setup Metagross. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I think Starmie was actually Life Orb as well, but I'm not sure if he applied enough pressure on Ryan's team to actually break it down, especially with an Uxie and an Empoleon there. He really needs wall breakers in order to kind of start breaking down Ryan's team, because Latias eventually was able to come in pretty much for free and then start either setting up or start dealing out damage. And that's something that you don't ever want like your opponent to give the opportunity to. Just never let Latias come in for free and start setting up on you. But to me, I think that Gryoine maybe should have brought some more wall breakers in this match. Like, I do like the setup Metagross though, believe me, I do, but I don't think it was, I don't think it applied enough pressure, especially with it being, like, very slow, because Ryan's team had Blacephalon, he had a Zeraora, he had a Latias, he had a Scarf Landorus. Metagross was just, yes, he was rock polished, but he would never had the opportunity to actually set it up, so I think that was one of the bigger things.
True.
So, but yeah, I think this game had a lot of good plays though, for sure. A lot of questionable plays maybe on both sides. Like, I remember Ryan after the game told us that his Zeraora was actually Z move, but he was Z Acrobatics instead of Z Bounce, which you know, maybe I think he told us that he put on Acrobatics last minute instead of like Bounce, or the Z move was last minute. And
I instead of either Z Bounce, because he had Fake Out a Gem Standard Acrobatics.
He could have had that as well instead of the Z move.
Z Acrobatics and no item Life Orb. Yeah, no item Acrobatics do the same.
Because then he could have had the Z move on Blacephalon, and with the Z move, Blacephalon would have applied a lot of pressure on Gryoine's team as well. Like I'm pretty sure like a Z Mind Roll would have done a lot of damage to that Audino, just in my opinion.
Yes and no, because it's a double-edged sword. Because I'm pretty certain that was an assault vested Blacephalon, based off the fact that a crit Volt Switch Life Orb Galvantula did not kill. So I think in retrospect, he made the right decision keeping the assault vest on, but on paper, a flame charge Z Mind Blow set would be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Either way, it was a good match, and Ryan was able to clutch out that with I believe it was a 3-0. So
yes, 3-0.
So no, it did well. Latias, of course, was able to clutch out some kills there, like he always does, and Lando and Zeraora. So, like I said, Ryan's team just had a lot of pressure on his team. So he brought a lot more wall breakers. So, which was good though, to be fair, because with the Celesteela on the opposite side, had he brought it, Ryan really had a lot of answers to it. So I think he brought the right team. With that, we can actually move on to the next match, and that's the St. Louis Scizors versus the Oaxville Oshawatts, and Piran versus Kaitlyn.
I'm going to start off by just saying, Quick Claw Mudsdale got upset.
Yeah.
Like,
I respect it.
Hey, I can see it.
I did not see anyone putting that, but I mean, I guess it worked. I don't know.
It's interesting because again, Kaitlyn is a new addition to the C League, and she's obviously proving herself pretty nicely here. The Infernape picking up about 3 kills in that match, and obviously she played it well. I can't remember if it was Scarf or not, I believe so, but what's interesting about this match was that I think both sides kind of had some questionable plays, but more so on Piran's part. He brought in his Scizor, and knowing that obviously he was going to U-turn on the Mew, you kind of have to expect Mew to maybe run some kind of fire coverage for your Scizor. So Piran kind of just let his Scizor take a big flamethrower, and it had to drop there. And then I believe there was another play that cost him his Donphan.
I'm gonna get to it real quick.
I think it was the Sylveon.
He brought Donphan in, killed the Mew, and then let Donphan take a close combat. But by that point, the game was over.
I think Infernape was Z. I think.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. So the Z Infernape, I think, was able to just completely obliterate the Turtonator, and Turtonator didn't even get a chance to set up his Shell Smash. So, it came down to a close game. I believe it came down to a 1-0. And
there were a couple.
I'm curious as to what the Raichu set was on Kaitlyn's end. Was it Scarf?
It got obliterated.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I know. I'm just curious what it was.
Well, pretty much what it came down is that match should have been a Piran win, but
Piran had it close. If he ended up Magnet Rising in the end with his Raikou, I think he would have been able to clutch it.
well, you didn't.
Yeah. Do we know what the rest of the Mudsdale set was? Could it hit the Raikou?
No, it was Heavy
Magnet
Slam.
Rise?
Yeah, an Earthquake, Stealth Rock, and then I don't know if we saw the other 2 moves.
I don't
It was
think we
Heavy
saw that.
Slam
we
and
didn't.
then something else. Yeah.
I mean, if he had,
he swapped.
yeah.
He swapped after the Magnet Rise. A couple other things that caught my eye. One on Piran's side, one on Kaitlyn. Piran, when he got after the Scizor died, he went Ditto, which became Mew.
Yeah.
He went for an Earth Power when nothing on Kaitlyn's team really wanted to take a Psychic or whatever Psychic type move Mew might have had.
It's
assuming
true.
it did have a
Yeah.
if it did have a Psychic type move.
I can understand the Earth Power being good against the Raichu and the Infernape, but even even those two didn't want to switch into a Psychic, so.
Which,
Right.
in retrospect, makes me think that Mew didn't have a Psychic type move because Psychic spam was free there.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing on Kaitlyn's side, it was good play by Piran to bring play rough on Donphan.
I
but
really like that as well.
with Magic Bounce already a thing on Sableye, I don't know if Taunt is a necessity. I get that you would want it if you don't Mega Evolve,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact that she let it and then clicked Taunt after Mega Evolving makes me a little bit confused.
Mm-hmm. Well, on Piran's team, he has a Toxapex, so I can understand maybe he didn't want the Toxapex to recover spam. But at the same time, Toxapex can't really do much to Sableye, and Sableye can just set up Calm Minds on it. So, Haze.
He could have been afraid of the Shell Smash, Turtonator, or Raikou.
Okay.
He could have been afraid of
any sort of setup.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's all fair and good, but the part that confused me more is why Taunt turn against the Don
Yeah,
when you have Magic Bounce.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also you bring Taunt on Turtonator, you're still slower, so
That is very
Turtonator
true.
still gets his Shell Smash off. So yeah,
It's a slower taunt, and it's not the best kind of taunt, but I'm sure he just didn't want a lot of setup happening. Obviously, he could have had taunt on Mew as well, so it's really just. Oh, sorry, I keep saying he. Kaitlyn could have had taunt on Mew, but I guess she just thought that Sableye was the best kind of lead, and maybe just going for taunt there would have been.
I would say if you're going for Taunt there, don't Mega Evolve, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the Prankster.
Yeah, because you get the
I would
Prankster
have
taunt.
swapped and not Mega.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, Don fan led, and she didn't want rocks going up either, so I can understand that.
I mean, either Mega Evolve and do something else. Don't Mega click taunt.
Because to be
Swap
fair,
out.
like Piran does have a lot of setup on his team, so especially with the mods that he brought the Shell Smash, he brought the Manaphy with that could obviously Tail Glow. Raikou could Calm Mind, Scizor could Swords Dance, that kind of stuff.
The play bringing taunt isn't the issue. I personally wouldn't have, but I understand why. The thing that confuses me more is the idea of clicking it after Mega Evolving turn.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a close match by Piran and Kaitlyn there. Came down pretty close. Had Raikou Magnet Rose there, then maybe he would have clutched out that match, but still came down to a 1-0, so not a bad match. So that's the matches that we're going to talk about in C League, guys. We're actually going to move on to the B League, where we have a couple of matches that we want to discuss here. B League had a few, but we're going to actually bring up the standings and compare them to how they were last week as well. In the 12th place for the B League division, we have the Atlanta Firehawks and JDMI. 11th place, we have Lehigh Valley Phantumps and Rummy. 10th place, Bakersfield Beartics and Mawiles. 9th place, we have the Kalamazoo Cricketoons and Juke Loans. 8th place, Tennessee Volcanions and Aces. 7th, we have Boston Blissies and Bolus. 6th, we have the Cleveland Crescelias and Stumbles. The 5th place, we have Las Vegas Ludicolos and Rin. 4th place, we have the Maryland Mudsdale and Beater. In 3rd place, we have the Victoria Victinis and Zombie. And number 2, we have Michigan Manectrix and Cheese. And number 1, we had the Hartford Lords and Puck. So 2 of these coaches we actually have on call right now. But if we compare them to how they were last week, I think the only big drop that we had from last week's standings was that Bolus was sitting at number 2, and now he dropped straight to number 7. And Puck remains at number 1, and JDMI remains at the bottom there. Aces also went up a couple of places, and everyone else kind of just moved up and down. But the standings haven't changed too much. It's still kind of week 2. So, but anyways, we have a couple matches we want to talk about. I think the first match was I think it was going to be Aces versus Miles. Yeah. And what do you guys think about this match here?
First off, shout out to Electrode.
Okay, we can start talking about how good Electrode is for Miles' sake. The dual screens Electrode that he brought, obviously, him leading with it. He had the taunt, I believe.
It was taunt, reflect, light screen, and volt switch.
Yes.
He was behind a reflect, and I'm assuming that was a Z Fire Fang from Lycanroc.
Yes, I think that was, yeah.
And he just ate it like a champ.
He ate that thing.
Yeah. Well, that point,
it was light clay as well.
At that point, he was already pretty low, and I think that was the last Mon as well. So,
it was.
But I do like the fact that Electrode was actually pretty good in this match. Like, he was able to outspeed Aces as fast as Mon, being the Greninja, and he was able to let the rest of his team stay very healthy by having the Vaporeon with Wish and the screens, kind of just reducing the damage there. The thing about dual screens Electrode is that you can allow your setup mons to start being really effective. And I'm not sure if besides the Infernape, which was an amazing Infernape set that he brought the bulk up slack off set. I don't think he had any other setup besides that. And normally when you have dual
Think so
screens,
either.
you kind of have a setup sweeper in the back. So, you know, it was the Infernate that really did some work there, and I really like that. You know, it came down to obviously Aces having some better prep with Masquerade, obviously getting 3 kills there, and you know Victini just, I believe Victini was Scarf. I might be wrong there, but you know, having the final gambit, another Victini that we see final gambiting, and then you know, Lycanroc being Zemu. So
This match was really the story of the tier 5s, because on Miles' side, we've already talked about the Electrode, which, by the way, it was behind a Reflect when it took that Fire Fang. I was going to say it did a the Z Fire Fang did a powerful 24%. But on Ace's side, Masquerade did.
Yes, I really like that Masquerade. That berry was very smart.
It was a Yache Masquerade.
This was definitely a battle of low tier mods.
yes, for sure.
Like,
Yeah. But to be honest, I still love the bulk up Infernape, max defense, I believe, on Miles' end there. That really took it from me.
I was very excited to see what that thing was gonna do after it set up. But obviously, unfortunately, the final gambit
kind of just had to take it down.
In case of emergency, break glass. But...
I'm not sure if Infernape had any speed, because otherwise that Victini was probably Scarfed, right?
I would assume it was Scarfed anyway. But...
Yeah, for sure. Because with Infernape setting up to +2, I'm not too sure how he was going to hit that Altaria. But he could have had Willow, like Will-O-Wisp or something, but I think his stabs being in close combat and Flare Blitz were probably all he needed.
I would have said maybe he brought him because his 4th move, but the fact that
Gunk
he
shot?
didn't click it, the fact he didn't click it makes me think that it was.
Yeah, well,
Infernape does learn Gunk Shot, right? I'm not just.
No, you're right.
yeah, it
does
does.
learn Gunk Shot. Yeah. He could have had like the rest of his squad kind of take down Altaria before he set up the Infernape, because like Mamoswine, obviously, you know, it's very very good against Altaria. Vaporeon can bulk out Altaria's hits if it doesn't set up. You know, Haunter obviously having super effective stab against it, so maybe he was thinking that he wanted to break down the Altaria before he set up the Infernape, because otherwise Altaria would have just walled that Infernape. But yeah, I think it was a good match though. Obviously, like you guys said, it was the battle of the lower tier mons, and unfortunately, Miles's Electrode just wasn't enough this match. Like it was shining, but it just didn't end up coming through this time around. But we can move on to the next one. We're going to be talking about the Rummy versus Zombie match, which is the Lehigh Valley Phantumps versus the Victoria Victinis. And yeah, a very close game. And what do you guys think of this one here? Obviously another Megalodios.
Yeah, not a lot that like jumped off the page in terms of major misplays or major anything like that. The only thing for me that I was left like with major questions about was on the Empoleon, why Defiant? With no physical attacks, you want to go Torrent.
I think he was trying to bait.
It was probably bait, but I don't know if it would have psyched Zombie out enough to be scared of that bait, because I don't know, does Zombie have webs on his team?
I don't think so,
No.
but I think it was very clearly Defiant Land OT Intimidate, but
I mean,
even
for
still,
sure.
Zombie has Pex, so
Yeah.
like, I mean, that thing is stopping whatever Empoleon wants to do.
Besides an Earthquake,
would-
obviously, but like,
he would need an agility up to even threaten the Lando to begin with. So
well, if he had Aqua Jet, then that could have been a thing. But
Yeah.
probably
still.
does like 40%.
The thing is that with any kind of setup sweeper that Rummy has, Zombie has the Ditto. So of course, like we saw later in the Slurpuff, you can't really Ditto the Slurpuff because Slurpuff has the Unburden. But
Burden.
if Empoleon was going to be Swords Dance or Agility or anything, Ditto was going to come in after that anyways, and perhaps like kind of scare it out. So Zombie really does have a very bulky team, and then it's very centered around Latios and Lando, as we talked about in the power rankings. So you see right there. I'm not sure. I think Sylveon was offensive this match. I could be wrong, but it did have
I don't think it was fully defensive.
Because it did have a very good matchup, barring the Empoleon, obviously. Just as a breaker.
I'm gonna say I think Rummy did as good a job as he could have to try and break this team, but Zombie's team is just so well put together that and he knows how to play it so well. I see people having a hard time breaking this team.
Well, I play him next week, so I get that joy. But the main thing about Rummy's team construction is that a team like Zombies is always going to be problematic.
Yeah.
He doesn't put setup pieces because Terrakion needs 2 turns to truly threaten the team.
Well, to be fair, Terrakion has a really good, if you look at it, Terrakion has a really good matchup if he actually sets up a Swords Dance. Nothing really switches into a rock type move really well, but
yes and no, because
there's obviously the bulk that Zombie has, right? But if he's able to break down some of Zombie's pieces, Terrakion's able to kind of just revenge some. Rummy,
and that's the issue with the team construction, is that he doesn't really have the necessary pieces to break down the team progressively. He really only has Cura Black, I guess an offensive Rotom Heat, and Superior to be great wall breakers that can chip that team down over time. To the point where Terrakion can be problematic after a Swords Dance.
So we do have to address that Rummy did trade away his Hippowdon for Gliscor next week, so he doesn't have that anymore. But in this matchup, I'm not sure it was doing too much anyways. But being very fat obviously could help, right? Zombie's team, of course, has a lot of recovery on it, and it's just impossible.
And it's also very bulky, and the fact that he has, not only does he have haze on Toxic Effect, but he also has the Ditto to basically stop any setup sweepers.
I will say though,
to really break his team down.
I will say, because Zombie has bulky pivots, he becomes very vulnerable when something like a strong wall breaker like Kieran Black comes in, because he was able to get off a strong Z free shock off on Zombie's Umbreon and just annihilate it. So
it did instantly.
And first of all, there's not a lot of switch-ins to that, so
no.
But
almost everything minus the Pex got instantly, and even Pex took way more damage than me.
So I can understand, but that's a good way for Rummy. If he had brought all wall breakers in this match, he would have had probably a good time trying to beat it down, and he almost had it in the end with the belly drum Slurpuff. Of course, Pex being doing what it does best and just swapping out, regenerating, and then making sure that it's not vulnerable to get revenge killed. He was able to clutch it out there. But Slurpuff, if Zombie didn't let that thing get the momentum he needed, he could have actually swept him in the late game. So I think Rummy tried hard with his the team that he brought, and unfortunately it didn't pan out. But He did really well.
I think that he could have brought a little bit more for Toxapex. The only thing on his team that could even 2-hit KO it was probably the Kieran Black and then the Uniclus, but you really need to bring something that you can switch into it consistently to punish its use, and he didn't really have that.
Yeah.
So Toxapex was kind of free.
Rummy did the best with the team construction that he had.
Yeah.
But he's never going to be favored in that matchup against that team. Few teams are, but that team especially is just not particularly built to deal with that particular team.
To be fair, Rummy had to get the right predictions in order for him to break down Zombie's team, because what you were saying, Puck, yes, he does need a good switch in for Pex, which is the Reuniclus, right? Reuniclus having Magic Guard, not caring about a burn or anything, and having super effective stab against the Toxapex. The only problem is that Zombie has fat mons like Umbreon, Latios, and Sylveon to kind of pivot into after that. So had Rummy kind of predicted the proper switch-ins there, he could have maybe had some more momentum and continuously pressure Zombie there. But obviously Zombie, being who he is, he knows how to play his pieces properly. So.
I would have liked to see the Reuniclus used a little bit more.
The Reuniclus is a double-edged sword, though, because should he bring a potential up to deal with the Umbreon should it decide to come in? The Ditto actually is a problem there because his team does not particularly like dealing with Reuniclus. He didn't bring the Mega Sableye, at least I think. But if he didn't bring Mega Sableye, Reuniclus, if the Trick Room is still up, causes a lot of problems, and even if it isn't still up, it can be annoying.
Yeah, for sure. And to be honest, the Sableye, I'm not sure how much it would have done, because obviously Zombie had the Sylveon there. And then he had the Umbreon, which can't be prankstered, but I don't think Sableye had all too great of a matchup, if not to just bounce back hazards, but I really
would have
think
needed some calm minds to really be of any use.
And setup sweeping is of course what he tried to go for in that Slurpuff, right? So
Slurpuff was the right one to do it, only because
the Ditto can't.
The Ditto couldn't copy.
He got into the right spot, but he needed more chip on Pex to be.
I think
really he needed Pex and Gunk.
Yeah, I really think with Rummy's team construction, he always had to be in the driver's seat and apply as much pressure as he could against Zombie's team in order for him to break the pieces down, so that Terrakion, Reuniclus, Kyurem, could revenge kill and then have Slurpuff win in the late game with the belly drum sweep. So that's going to be their game, guys. I'm pretty sure it also came down to a 3-0, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was a 3-0.
Yeah. So we can move on to the next game we're going to be talking about, and that's actually a beaters match versus Rin and his Las Vegas Ludicolos. So I'll let you take it away, Beater.
So I'm going to do kind of the abbreviated version match, because there are 3 critical turns. I'm actually going to go in reverse order because I think they actually go in reverse importance. The first turn I'm going to talk about is at the end, towards the end of the battle, Mega Aggron. My Mega Aggron was kind of just spamming Dragon Tail and bouncing things around because I ended up on a matchup. I'm going to pull up specifically what it was right now, where the mon that was in didn't want to stay in against the Mega Mawiles. The Mega Aggron. I want to say it was the Celesteela. Give me a second. Yes, no. It was the Sceptile and the Aggron switched in on the same turns. So he swapped into Celesteela and I revealed Dragon Tail. And at that point, I started spamming Dragon Tail. We ended up in a bit of a situation there where had he not Mega Evolved, or had he tried to do something else, the Dragon Tail damage would not have put him in range to where Stealth Rock Chip would have killed, which it did in this case because he did Mega Evolve and Dragon Tail brought him down to 10%.
Mm-hmm.
The back and forth there was, should he have Mega Evolved, should he not have Mega? No matter what, he was going to end up in that situation regardless, so
yeah,
it didn't matter much. The second turn I want to talk about is a little bit earlier on in the battle. Salazzle had just come in against Mega Aggron. There's no way I was going to stay in there. I went into Drapion, and he revealed the D for Drive. The back and forth there was, should he have Nasty or should he have blown the Z move? Blowing the Z move, in my personal Z play, with the Flash Fire Chandelier, potentially and actually there.
Mm-hmm.
But had he clicked Nasty Plot and then blown the Z move against Drapion, Sludge Wave would not have killed Chandelure and would have popped my Sonic Berry.
Yeah.
Flame Charge, and that way I would have been. I was modest modest Flame Charge 3 attacks.
And it showed.
I would have then
for sure.
Yeah,
He was doing a lot
I
of
would have
damage.
then outsped the Mega Sceptile. So it would have been the exact same situation where to bring take the Shadow Ball damage and then Revenge Kill the Mon.
Yeah.
The turn that was important, and we talked about this actually right before the call. The turn that was important and the turn that did kind of make or break the battle was turn 8. Bulu against Crocodile. Bulu was Choice Scarfed into Stone Edge, with Crocodile at 8% and burned. We still don't know what item that Crook was. It wasn't Assault Vest, it wasn't Lefties. We're still trying to figure it out. But Bulu had revealed Sludge Bomb, and Crook had revealed Sludge Bomb, and Bulu was scarfed into Stone Edge. Stone Edge killed from that range. It was at 8% in Adamant Choice Scarf. But Stone Edge actually missed that turn, meaning Bulu died to a Sludge Bomb. We talked about this a little bit right before recording, but if Bulu killed the Crook, that was a perfect opportunity for Rin to get in his Mega Sceptile and Mega Evolve, so that Jolteon was unable to just pivot around against a potential Sceptile switch in late game, which ended up being a problem for him.
Mm-hmm.
So that turn was actually the most important turn, and the Stone Edge miss hurt him more than hurt me. But the other two turns were less.
I want to talk, and I like your points there. I also want to talk about the fact that Stealth Rocks actually became a very big factor against Rin because that's all you really need to do with Aggron was just set up those rocks, because in the late game, had Sceptile not had been so low, I think he still would have been able to win, but because Sceptile was in Stealth Rock range, he lost, even though he was up 3 Mons to just Jolteon. But because Jolteon had enough health and was faster than everything at that point, except for Sceptile, which died on entry, you were able to just win the match, and it was due to rocks as well. But
this was kind of what I was talking about in the PRs when I said sacrifice. Well, a little bit of catching up to do. Since the PR recording, I actually did make the trade with Rin for the Chandelure. So we did swap Chandelure for Salazzle, so that's why Salazzle's on his side now, mine, vice versa for the Chandelure.
Yeah.
And then I picked up Blastoise and Credilli for Jellicent and Avalugg, giving myself a more feasible spinner. But what I still said in PRs is true. I'm willing to make a lot of battles Rocks v Rock, because overall Rocks tend to be more impactful for my opponents than they do for me.
Well,
and it showed in this battle.
It was showing in this match more because Rin just didn't bring any hazard removal. Like, I think he was more relying on maybe you bringing Defog or something. But obviously, Rin's team wasn't too weak to hazards. Like, he
I don't
didn't
think I
have.
have a debugger, so
Yeah, he didn't. So I mean, you had.
I also
Yeah.
noticed that. Well, first of all, Rin leaving Crook in on Blastoise to catch that Scald burn really hurt him. Because after he lost the Crook and the Salazzle, he really didn't have anything to bring Aggron.
Well, to be honest, I was also kind of wondering about that myself, because Crook at full health would have been a nice response for the Chandelure. Now, if the Crook went down, Rin really didn't have the best switch into like a Shadow Ball or a Flamethrower from Chandelure, especially since you said he was modest, right? So
yes.
I get that he had tech with Sludge Bomb against the Bulu, and I respect it. At the same time, it wasn't gonna two-shot Bulu unless unless Bulu was very offensive. Anyways, if you're especially defensive, you were gonna take that hit no problem. Anyways, so
I did think about bringing AV Boo. So
so I get it. Like, he had the tech, he wanted to use it. But really, preserving the Crook would have been like, I can only speak on his behalf because he's not in the call with us. So Rin, if you're listening, obviously we're just trying to be very objective with this match, and the fact that letting Crook go down when the Chandelure was still very healthy, it might not have been the best course of action there. But
see, I'm 50-50 on that thought, because you're right. Keeping Crook alive would have been like, it would have been great in theory to keep Crook alive, and I think that was the time to let Crook take Scald damage, particularly Scald damage, which can burn.
Mm-hmm.
The counter argument there is that I brought Choice Scarf Bulu, I brought a Chandelure set that carried Energy Ball and was speed boosting through Salic and Flame Charge, and I had
well, you had a
grassy terrain,
Blastoise,
and I had grassy terrain, which potentially neutralized
the earthquake.
The earthquake.
I mean, obviously you can get knocked off, but I can understand. Like, Crook pretty much got neutralized, especially against the Aggron, which he couldn't touch, because we saw with a burned Crocodile in terrain, the earthquake only did about
6%,
6 or 7%. So.
It did 6%. I gained all the HP back.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, that was why I was able to set up Rock safely. Because when Blue went down, I went into Aggron with 2 turns left, Rocks the first turn, and then Heavy Slam the second to kill. And between those 2 turns, I gained HP.
Exactly. Yeah. The thing is that Crook. I understand Crook. I've used Crook before. It doesn't get like the most expansive move pool. It does get like niche moves here and there, Iron Tail and Sludge Bomb and what have you, but it can't do everything, is what I'm saying. It can't take on the Bulu and take on the Aggron and take on the Chandelure and take on the Drapion and the Jolteon at the same time. Your Jolteon as well had the Bugginium Z, which was a very nice bring because it hit the Crook and the Sceptile anyways, and it also hit the Necrozma, right? So, looking at it, Crook, like, you would think his matchup would be very nice, but really, letting it go down very early, just in my opinion, I think preserving it would have been very nice. But
I think in retrospect, knowing it was a defensive Celesteela set, it was cool that he had the tech. I would have personally liked to see, if I were him, I would have kept that tech in my back pocket until Blue was more chipped down, and then punch it on a switch-in with.
Yeah. If he wanted to go full tech with it, he should have just made it his Z user.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes and no, because Z Salazzle in theory did.
I mean, we were talking about it, right? If Salazzle had the Nasty Plot up, there was no switch-in after that. I mean, Blastoise maybe, and then I can't remember if.
Blastoise could have switched in, but
even then,
the Nasty Plot with that set still does not kill Chandelure after Rock.
Yeah,
and we even mapped it modest. It did max 72%. All it meant is instead of potentially popping Salic Berry, it guaranteed pop Salic. So it would have been the exact if he brought Z move versus.
For sure, but I think like you said, it just it came down to a couple points there, and the match would have gone.
The main one being getting Mega Sceptile to Mega Evolve earlier.
For sure. Had he Mega'd early on in the match, that would have at least had forced the 50-50 on Jolteon, because
it would have shown Mugginium 0.
Yeah, because obviously Rin has Manaphy and Celesteela, which Mega Sceptile kind of covers because of the Lightning Rod. So again, like it said, it would have had to kind of come down to that, because Sceptile obviously outspeeds Jolteon, and with Jolteon being pretty much at half, Sceptile would have been able to revenge at that point. So, but yeah, it didn't come down that way, unfortunately, and Beater just clutched it out with Jolteon in the end. So it came down to the 1-0, and I think that's all we're going to be talking about for B League. We can actually just move on to the A now, and we only have a couple matches in A that we're going to be talking about, and then we can move on to the kill leaders. So let's go over the standings here. In A League, we have at number 12 the Amsterdam Amberpoms. Number 11 we have Winnipeg Weaviles. Number 10 is the Carabobo Croagunks. Number 9 is the Portland Timbers. Number 8 Seattle Swamperts. Number 7 is the Seattle Salamances. Number 6 is the Ottawa Gengars. Number 5 is Memphis Mawiles. Number 4 is the Blue Collar Blossoms. Number 3 is the Lancaster Landorus. Number 2 is the Durham Dragonaires. And number 1 is the Palatown PG. So,
Let's do champ.
Yeah. So, just looking at the standings from last week, there was only I think there was actually a bunch of moves this time around, where we still have Witchard, Tyler, and Gunk. They haven't really moved from last week. They're still sitting at number 10, 11, and 12. But the big drop was Hunter losing his match against Simi Chris this week, and he dropped from the number 1 spot all the way down to the number 7. And then, of course, Swampy dropping a few spots after losing to...
I think I was like 4th last week.
I believe you were 3rd, actually. You were 3rd, and you dropped down to number 8.
I went down to 8.
Yeah. And then...
Yeah, Sky is no joke.
Oh, for sure. Skyquake did an amazing job this week. Actually, a lot of the coaches in A-League had some amazing games this week. Sky moving up to number 3, Mawiles actually moving up to number 5, and Gene moving up to number 6 as well. So we're going to be talking about a couple matches here. We can actually talk about the Mawiles versus Tyler match. If we look at the matchup, Mawiles brought his Crobat, Crocodile, Leafeon, Entei, Jellicent, and Cobalion, while Tyler brought his Kieran Black, Donphan, Mega Scizor, Sableye, Raikou, and Slowbro. And what do you guys have to say about this match?
So Mawiles, he brought the meme again. He brought the Leafeon. And this time
it actually did work.
It actually did some. So it was defensive this time around with Wish, Protect, and that kind of set. Obviously, the evolutions, they all get that kind of set if you want to bring them that way. Even Jolteon can be run that way, but Jolteon, doesn't have the best defense.
Right.
So, but Leafeon, I think it was there most likely to kind of pressure the Donphan and the Slowbro on Tyler's side. And it definitely did, and it was able to kind of heal up some of his members as well.
I think on Mawile's side, bringing the Protect like Wish set on Leafeon was, in hindsight, a pretty smart move, because he was able to scout the Sableye, which obviously was trying to trick something onto one of his mons, and he just would not let that happen.
Yeah.
My
for sure.
guess is Iron Ball because Prankster makes most things go first.
Yeah, I would expect that too. So my issue with this match was that Tyler. It's interesting because Tyler normally he likes to gain the momentum. He likes to have the upper hand, but he was just playing very predictably this match, and was just giving Mawiles like all the momentum to freely go into his crook on the Sableye when obviously a prankster was coming.
I think if he had been running U-turn on his Scizor over Bug Bite, that might have helped him a little bit more with momentum in the match.
One thing that for me kind of stuck out was that I understand that Slowbro is Colderberry, but it's one thing to have the Colbur and to reveal the Colbur in certain situations, but his crook switching was always the Slowbro.
Yeah.
Which is basically screaming, "Hello, I am Colderberry."
Exactly.
Now the crook was Power Trip, which was a good bring, but
it didn't end up being too crazy. He probably had like bulk up and stuff, but just didn't end up revealing any of it.
I'm personally surprised he went Power Trip over Punishment. I don't remember if Crook gets Punishment. I think he does.
I think so.
Regardless, Crook didn't get to take advantage of Power Trip, and therefore the Colberberry didn't mean anything. But the fact that his switch into Crook was always the Colbur Slowbro was, to your point, kind of just that predictable playing into his head.
So it was predictable, but at the same time, Slowbro is just very bulky and has slack off and recover anyways. So especially with the Colbur getting knocked off, knockoff's not going to be doing too much damage after that.
He also made a questionable play when he left the Slowbro in on the Jellicent, and it just caught a Hex and died.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I'm wondering why he didn't bring at least one Mon with like Toxic, because that Jellicent was just a nightmare for his team.
For sure. Yeah, I was about to say, you have to remember that Jellicent is part ghost sometimes, and obviously Slowbro, yes, it might be bulky, but Jellicent can always just take it on if it has the right coverage. So what I did like as well is that they both brought Z moves on specific mons that get like weather status. Like Mawiles brought Z Sandstorm on Crocodile, and Tyler, I don't think, well, he was able to reveal it, but he brought Z Hail on his Current Black. Unfortunately, that didn't end up mattering too much because Mawiles just had like crazy responses for Curum, so it didn't end up to, like, the Jellicent was just very, very bulky, and at that point he wasn't able to break it down enough to the point where maybe Curum can actually bring it back for him. And Scizor really didn't have the best matchup in this game going in, because of the fact that I think the Crobat was fully specially offensive, and it probably had Heat Wave as well to take on the Scizor. It could have even been Nasty Plot, I'm not too sure, but
Scizor really only wants to switch into 2 of the 6 mons he brought, and even the Cobalion is, I mean, you can switch into it, but you don't really want to.
If Cobalion had gotten up, like, obviously Cobalion was more of a support set, but if he was Swords Dance, bulky Mega Scizor probably still gets 2-shot by +2 Cobalion, so that's a thing as well. And it's hard, but even Swords Dancing up with Scizor really wouldn't have gained him too much momentum, especially with the Entei still being very healthy and around. Scizor just wasn't able to get the kind of momentum it needed to get it going, and it actually became setup fodder for the Entei, setting up 2 flame charges, with which Beater is very much
I was about to say, I need to make sure I talk about this. Mawiles.
Yeah.
I want you to hear me loud and clear. You're on a thin line right now, Beater
But,
Gate and Enterprise lawyers, because that flame charge set was a little too similar to the one exclusively copyrighted by Beater Gate Enterprise.
So
I'm not going to reveal it because if someone's watching, I'm going to play against, or I'm going to use that Entei.
But so the Entei that Mawiles brought, of course, the flame charge set. He was able to set it up so that even the Z Hail Kiram, it wasn't going to outspeed Entei, and Entei was just able to clutch it out in the end. He had the Iron Head, which is interesting because Iron Head only does a little bit more damage than Sacred Fire, I believe. Or actually, Flare Blitz does more damage than Iron Head, so maybe he just didn't want that recoil. But I don't know what else Iron Head was really for. Entei had the Iron Head. I guess
Iron Head was likely for the Togekiss, because he didn't want to bring Stone Edge.
It could have been for the Togekiss, but again, Flare Blitz does more. I guess, again, like he just didn't want the recoil damage. So
yeah, I think mix of recoil and not missing Stone Edge.
Yeah, that could have been it as well. Yeah. So I think Mawiles just had the perfect responses here. He had a very nice balanced team to kind of take on Tyler's Fairy, Steel, and Dragon with the Scizor, Togekiss, and the Kiran, and he was just able to clutch it out because Tyler just wasn't able to gain the momentum he needed with his Scizor and Kiran in the late game. And the Raikou, unfortunately, he was saying it did get crit, but at that point I don't really think it mattered too much unless like something else came, maybe differential came into play there. But he was saying how if it didn't get crit, things could have gone a little bit differently there. But yeah, that was that game. It came down to a 5-0 in Mawiles' favor. Like I said, I think Tyler, he wasn't playing himself. I think he wasn't making the correct predictions, and he kind of just let Mawiles really set up some of his mons. So we can actually just move on to the last match, and that's going to be Gene's match versus Gunk. I think Gene actually brought some interesting sets. Like he brought the Z Heal Bell on Vaporeon, which was able to like kind of remain very bulky to kind of take on Gunk's Pokemon, because Vaporeon actually did have a very nice matchup against Gunk. And I think Gene knew that, and he just figured, why not bring a Z move on Vaporeon to just have a kind of backup. Even if he had a Wish, he was still able to kind of just remain healthy enough to make sure that he was able to wall some of Gunk's mons. Because if you look at it, Gene didn't really have the best response to Banded 1000 Arrows. But as we saw in the match, Banded 1000 Arrows to Mega Aggron didn't even do half. So I guess Gene was just very confident that Mega Aggron was going to be very healthy at that point in the match when Zygarde came in. And I can understand that play because he wants to have a response there. But at the same time, if you're not going to bring out the Mega Aggron early on in the match to get up rocks or something, then it becomes kind of useless until the Zygarde actually comes in. So I still do like that Gene was able to just win out this match, and he had responses for pretty much everything, especially the Diancie, which on Gunk's part, I'm not sure why he ended up bringing the Diancie, knowing that Mega Aggron was just very, very bulky, because Gunk didn't really have the best ways to kind of break down that Aggron, just in my opinion. Yes, he did have Banded 1000 Arrows and he had a Rhyperior, but Gene just had he had a Rotom, he had a Vaporeon, he had a Comfey, which is able to kind of just Draining Kiss the Zygarde as well. So anyways, what are you guys' thoughts on this match? It was very short, and
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to it, really.
yeah. I would have liked to have seen Gunk maybe preserve some of his win cons, though. I think when he brought in each Mon, they kind of just they either set up, did their thing, and then dropped. I'm not sure if he, was planning for that because he was trying to sweep with Zygarde in the late game, but it didn't seem like he was trying to really preserve his Mons there. So
I like the roar Vaporeon. I think it was Vaporeon.
yeah, for
I
sure.
think so.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was an interesting set with the Z Heal Bell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Vaporeon set was very, very nice as well. And I mean, obviously bringing the Prankster Tornadus kind of helps against Gene as well if he just doesn't want, rocks up or anything. So I can understand that, but having your response to an Aggron be Taunt Tornadus is also very tricky because Tornadus isn't the bulkiest, and obviously Aggron can, Stone Edge you or Heavy Slam you and do a lot of damage, but I think Gunk was just using the best team that he could bring against Gene, but Gene was just able to kind of play around it and preserve what he needed to take on Gunk's team. So yeah, it came down to a 5-0 obviously for Gene, and I think that was a pretty decent match on his end. I think we're gonna end the recaps for each league right there, and we're actually gonna get into the kill leaders. Number 1 is going to be Megalodios, and not very surprising right there. Last week it was sitting at number 2, and we were saying how if it climbs to number 1, there's not going to be any surprise. Each league has Megalodios, and it always ends up putting in a lot of work, and it's sitting at 12 kills and 1 death right now, and sitting at the top of the kill leaders. So I think
pretty well distributed across 3 coaches on that one.
Exactly.
7, 3, and 2 for each respectively.
Ryan actually picked him up this week and was able to put in some work with him against his opponent, I believe being Gryoine, and obviously Zombie always playing well with the Latios, and Hunter actually has 7 kills with him, so Megalodios always going to be a very, very huge threat, and just sitting at number 1. Number 2, we can go over it, is something that surprises me still, is the Alolan Muck, and it's really only been Cheese that's been putting in work with him, but he's been able to get Muck 9 kills and no deaths so far, so I think he knows what he's doing with it. Obviously, like we were saying before, if Muck is centered around a team that's able to cover its weaknesses, and it really only has like 1 weakness, and maybe a weakness to a physical wall breaker, and then if he's a cursed set, then it becomes even harder to break. But if you're able to get Muck going, he's definitely going to be able to rack up some kills. So I think Cheese just knows how to work him.
Not a whole lot else to add there.
So number 3 is Mega Sceptile, and sitting at 8 kills and 2 deaths. Mega Sceptile was sitting at number 1 last week, and I actually believe that was he only owned by 2 coaches last week, or maybe he was dropped?
I think so. I think he was only owned by. Then this week he picked up 3 kills from Juro's match, and in my match, or Riddenai's match, he did not kill any.
Oh yeah, he ended up just dropping there. Yeah, so he wasn't. So Rin wasn't able to get him going this week. So, but again, Sceptile is always going to be a threat, especially because of how fast he is. He just really needs the support with the rest of his team to get him going. But he's still going to be sitting at the top 5 for now. Number 4, we have Mega Pinsir, and sitting at 7 kills and 1 death. Unfortunately, the Melbourne Rotoms, I keep saying Melbourne Rotoms.
Yes, Aaron Cybertron saying.
Yeah. Shout out to him. But we're talking about the
GOAT.
Melbourne Marowaks in the C League. He wasn't able to bring him this week. Unfortunately, he had to forfeit his match this week. But I was able to pick up a few kills with Pinsir this week, so I'm happy about that. He's sitting at 7 and 1. And again, Mega Pinsir, all you really need to do with him is bring him in and click buttons, and you somehow are able to get kills. But obviously there's more to it. You have to break down the rest of your opponent's team before you can actually start to revenge kill them. So. Next up, number 5, we have Terrakion. Still a very big threat. I think he was a little bit lower last week, but he was still on the kill leaders. He's sitting at 7 kills and 3 deaths. And I think Skyquake picked up a few kills against... it was against you, Swampy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he
brought
his Scarf.
He got like 3 kills. I could be wrong.
Who knows?
I think he did, yeah. But he brought it scarfed, I believe, this week, and he was really able to do some work with it. I'm really impressed by how Sky is able to how to use the Terrakion each week. Again, he just uses his other mons, his walls to kind of break down the team, and then let Terrakion come in and then just revenge kill. So that's going to be Terrakion. We're going to move on to our number 6, which is Tapu Koko. And
surprised it's only at 6. That thing usually is top 5 or 3.
Yeah, well, last week it was at number 3, I believe, but this week I don't think it was able to get too much with Jaro, and I don't think Cell was able to get any kills with him this week either. But he's sitting at 7 kills and 3 deaths. I believe Stumble's got a few kills with him. So
I think so, because if I remember correctly, I think he got probably 1 kill this week, 1 kill last week. Could be wrong on that.
No, you could be right. I think Tapu Koko had maybe 5 or 6 kills last week, and now he has 7. So maybe Stumbles picked up a kill for him. But yeah, Tapu Koko again, just like Terrakion and Latias, always going to be probably in the top 10 somewhere. But he's sitting at number 6 right now. Our number 7.
Yeah, he picked up 1 and 1.
Okay. So our number 7. I don't know if this is too surprising for anyone, but this is going to be Mega Aggron, and sitting at 7 kills and 4 deaths. And
so this does and doesn't surprise me at the same time, because Aggron is usually one of those who will kill at least one thing, but usually not 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like, depending on the set you...
Yeah. If you always want to bring him maybe utility with rocks, obviously he's a great stealth rocker, because he's always guaranteed to get up rocks. You know, it's kind of hard not to get up rocks. It's like, maybe if he gets taunted, then it's kind of hard, but otherwise he's always able to get up rocks and just do his work there. But he could be very offensive as well. Like, if he brings Curse and Rest and that kind of set, you can probably get some kills from that.
Like, looking at the kill death distribution, Gene has him 3 kills, 2 deaths. Heat is it a little?
Yeah.
Cell?
Yeah, Cell.
Okay, Cell has him 2 kills and actually 0 deaths.
Oh no, I'm sorry, no. The Oklahoma Heatmore is Rizzo.
My bad. Rousseau has him 2 kills, 0 deaths,
Mm-hmm.
and I have him 2 kills, 2 deaths. So, kind of to that point, across 2 matches for each, it's averaging barely over 1 kill.
Yeah.
Barely under.
Mm-hmm. So it makes a lot of sense there, I guess. Each match he's maybe able to get 1 kill or 2. So.
Yep.
And we can actually move on to the number 8, and that's going to be Thunderous Incarnate, and only Puck has him.
Exclusively owned by Puck. Right?
Yeah, and he was able to get a lot of kills with him this week. He's sitting at 6 kills and 0 deaths right now, And
5 of them were from this week.
Yeah, I had 5 of them this week with him.
because he had to face up against Juke, and he just had a really good matchup, I believe. So
Yeah, there wasn't a ground type.
That
So-
was Plymouth.
Yeah, that helps.
yeah, Thunderous being a very nice utility mon himself, but he'd also be a very, very scary setup sweeper with nasty plot and agility if you get him, if he gets any kind of momentum, obviously. And even then, if he's just able to revenge kill as well, he's very fast at that 111 speed. So, you know, if your opponent loses a lot of their faster mons, this thing can always just come in and bolt switch out and maybe pick up a kill or two. So.
Yeah, I haven't used it yet in Draft League. This is my first season, and 2 games in, I'm already very excited.
Oh yeah,
It's a very fun mon.
I really love using
kinda-
Thunderous. Yeah.
I remember PSUSAL Season 1, I was in the same boat and never touched it, and it was a super fun mon.
It's
I personally still like Thundo T better, but I understand why people like Thundo I.
so I had Thundo T in the PSUSAL Season 1, but I personally love Thundo High a lot better, just because of how much faster he is, and he still gets the same coverage, and you're still able to nasty plot with him. So,
Yeah, it's basically, do you want natural power or do you want that extra speed?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
both of
Yeah, a lot of
both
it's
them
the,
have great
the
abilities.
additional
so-
utility too with Prankster.
Prankster
Yeah.
always makes it nice with Taunt or T-Wave. Prankster T-Wave, you always have to be worried about that if your opponent has like setup sweepers, and you can always just Prankster T-Wave them. They're gonna be hesitant to just set up with them, knowing that you know there's a Prankster T-Wave coming at you.
Either versus them to bring sub.
Yeah, exactly. So that's gonna be Thunderous, and we're gonna move on to our number 9, and we have an Ultra Beast being Nihilego, sitting at 6 kills and 2 deaths. And I don't know, does this seem surprising to you guys, Nihilego?
No and yes. No, because Nihilego 9 kills. Nihilego at 6 kills, 9th place. Sounds about right. But yes, because it's the only Ultra Beast in the top 10.
Yeah, you would expect to see maybe Celesteela or I don't know, like
My
Buzzwall.
bad, the only Ultra Beast in the top 25.
Yeah, it's sitting up top. I think Simi did a lot of nice work with him against his match versus Hunter this week. Hunter pretty much not having too many switch-ins to the dual typing of Nihilego, especially with Nihilego being at 103 and Rock and Poison. Yes, it is 4 times weak to that ground, but its stabs are still very strong, especially if it gets a beast boost or 2 up. It can really do some work, and if it's Scarf, it does even more work. So, and you know, Stumbles also has him and was able to pick up maybe a kill or 2. I'm not sure if about this week, but
I know he picked up 1 last week, so I think he picked up 1 more this week.
you gotta love Nihilego because surprisingly,
I lied, he didn't come this week.
oh, it didn't come this week.
He picked up 2 against me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you look at it, they've only brought Nihilego 1 time each, Simi and Stumbles. So, but yeah, that's gonna be.
Probably should have checked that. But...
Yeah, that's gonna be Nihilego at number 9. And we're gonna move to our last spot at number 10, and that's gonna be Infernape, sitting at 6 kills and 5 deaths.
See,
And
this one makes me sad because we all know that Infernape could have been so much higher if the bulk up set
the bulk
was able to
upset
flourish.
with Miles for sure. He could have picked up a few
if that
kills
was
there.
able to flourish, that would have been a lot higher on this list. But fair play to Zombie for final gambiting with Victini.
I believe that was actually no, that wasn't Zombie. That was who was it? That was Aces.
Aces.
Aces
That was Aces.
yeah. And
Same thing.
yeah, Victini is sitting a little bit lower than Infernape, sitting at number 16, but Infernape at number 10. It's because obviously our newcomer Kaitlyn was able to pick up a couple of kills this week with Infernape, and she did it well. I believe the Infernape was Scarf, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure, but Infernape obviously if you leave it in the back as a revenge killer and it's Scarf in the late game, it's always able to kind of clean up, especially if your opponent runs out of responses to close combat. So it's just a very nice mod in general. So that's gonna wrap up our kill leaders for this week. We can actually just go into the potential matches for the upcoming week in week 3. What do you guys think about the matches coming up? You can start with C League if you want. See any potential matches that sparks your interest here?
Give me a minute. I should be ready in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Scrolling through, there aren't any that there aren't too many that, like, in terms of where they stand on the standings, jump off. Oshawatts versus Croagunks, which is Kaitlyn versus
Ganon. I was actually going to mention that might be a pretty interesting match.
That one's probably the best of that group. I saw one more.
I think the Palpitoads versus the Heatmore and Gryoine versus Rousseau, that's going to be a pretty good match. Rousseau right now sitting at the number 1, and you know, we want to see if Gryoine's able to kind of challenge that spot. So I think Gryoine's on the lower end of the rankings. Pay attention to Mawiles versus Camels, which is Star versus Godzilla. Yeah,
Godzilla.
That could be
that one. Could be a fun one.
Yeah, that could stand out as well. I'm actually pretty interested to see how Star wants to come back. So
looking at both of those teams, Godzilla's got a very offensive team set up, and if I remember correctly, Star has a lot of
offense as well, but he has a very balanced team in my opinion. So
his team is balanced. I'm not gonna predict, but I can see. My hand leans towards what useless contribution. My hand leans towards coach, but well, I'm not sure if we're predicting on here or not.
No, we're not going to. But you know, it's always nice to have some opinions up here. So I think those will probably be good. What about in B League? What do you think is going to be some really nice games? I actually like the Puckbud versus Rummy match. That could come up next week.
That'll be a fun one for sure. And looking at the matchup for both teams, that's actually kind of not quite a coin flip, but very close to it. The teams match up quite well against one another.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for Rummy, especially just because, again, with my Thunderous, his only ground type is Gliscor, which has the 4x weakness to Ice. So it's just going to be difficult for him to play around.
I think people are now going to be very cautious about your Thunderous going into a match, knowing that it's sitting at a very high standing in the kill leaders, and they just have to be worried about the fact that you know how to use that thing now. But I think Puck has that target on his back this season, you know, being at number 1. So I think Rummy is going to be trying all out this week, trying to beat you down. So you better watch out.
That'll make it fun.
I think your match Beater versus Zombie, that's going to be a pretty good one.
That's going to be a fun one. If for nothing else, then I know Zombie for me beating him in PCA. So that will definitely be a fun little week 3.
That grudge match,
sides. That will be both sides in full effect.
Actually, some nice ones in D League. I kind of like.
D League's got a Stumbles Miles is going to be.
Stumbles versus Miles, yeah, looks nice. Both of those two coaches were in C League last season, so maybe they have some competition. I
think Cheese and Juke might be a good one too.
I was about to bring that up too. Juke versus Cheese, because Juke versus Cheese, they were both in A-League last season, and they actually had a very nice match last season.
Do not expect this match to go longer than like 30 turns, because there'll be a whole lot of offense.
I mean, I faced Cheese last season, and our match went to about 100 turns. So I know the pain of having to go through that. So
unless Cresselia gets into the right spots, it's going to be just both teams staring at each other with setup and wall breakers.
Yep. And obviously Cheese has that muck, so he has to be wary about that. So,
yep.
All right, so that's gonna be B-League. I mean,
I'm
obviously,
looking at A.
Yeah.
I'm looking at A-League, and like almost every match that I'm looking at is very intriguing, because you've got Witcher versus Gunk, which they're both trying to get a win.
Yes.
So
yes.
that's going to be an interesting match. You got Gene versus Sky.
Oh, that's gonna be a good match.
You got Hunter versus Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. And then Swampy versus Eagle.
Eagle.
That's gonna be a fun one.
That's gonna be a fun one too.
And then you got Mawiles versus Jaro.
That's gonna be fun as well. They faced last season. I can't remember how many times they faced, but they faced last season as well, and I think Jaro had the upper hand. I can't remember exactly how that went.
Jaro's going to be, I think it's going to be really interesting, because Jaro really doesn't want to start 0-3.
Yeah, he wants that win. Last season he was actually number 1 for a while, and now he's kind of starting a little bit slower, but Mawiles is also picking it up now. He's sitting at 1-1. And what's
to your point about 0-3, the Witchard Gunk game is going to be interesting, because
none of them want the record. So
yeah,
you know what, in A-League it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to not see a good match, but especially when you have all good coaches. If you don't prep like a beast in A-League, you're always gonna have a very negative record. So in the one match actually I'm looking forward to is Gene versus Sky, because I believe, if memory serves, they faced off last season in finals, or was it semifinals? Because
B versus C semis.
Because Sky won in his C League division, and then Gene won in his B League division, and they had to face off, and Gene ended up winning that match. So maybe Sky's looking for some revenge there. But yeah, that's
Gene was on a tear at the end of last season too.
Oh yeah, for sure. He kept going on until he ended up running into the Eagle. And Eagle have to take him down, unfortunately.
But I get Eagle this week, so that should be fun.
That should be fun. Hey, again, a lot of these matches are just going to be very interesting, especially especially in B as well. To be honest, like some of the matches in B just look very, very intense. But I think if we don't have anything else to talk about, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here. That's going to be the end of our week 2 recap. If you guys enjoyed, of course, if you guys think that we're talking on way too long, just let us know, leave a comment. If you guys think that we can improve somehow, again, just leave a comment. We always open for some feedback, and yeah, like stay tuned for next week when we talk about our season 3 recap.